This is a wrought iron gate. It is made from mild steel. This is a steel axe. It is made from iron. This is an iron mask. It is made from steel. This is a steel knife. It is made from iron. This is a mail coif. It is made from galvanized iron fencing wire. This is a coat of mail. It is made from galvanized steel fencing wire. This is a pattern welded sword. It is made from both iron as well as steel. This is a monosteel sword. It is made from both iron as well as steel. This is a cast iron anvil. It has between 3 and 4% carbon content. This is a cast steel anvil. It has about 0.8% carbon content. This is an antique forged nail that I found in the ruins of some old building. It is made from genuine wrought iron. It has between 0.04 and 0.1% carbon. This is a modern nail that I forged myself. It's made from mild steel, and it has between 0.03 and 0.1% carbon. Steel was invented around 1200 BC. Iron was invented around 1900 AD. Confused yet? Hello there. Today I would like to talk about something that really gets on my nerves, and that is people being pedantic about the terms iron and steel. All too often I hear people talking about iron and steel as though there's some great difference between the two of them. What's worse is when I hear people saying things that are completely untrue, such as steel was developed at such and such a time, whereas iron was developed much earlier, or that such and such a people had iron-working technology but not steel-working technology. Let me clear things up. There is no great dichotomy between iron and steel. When the first blacksmith created the first piece of iron, he also created the first piece of steel. There are 3 definitions going around. Let's examine them in the hopes of clearing this up. The modern definition calls anything that's kind of soft iron and anything that's kind of hard steel. This isn't terribly useful though, as a low-carbon steel blade that's been heat-treated can be harder than a high-carbon steel blade that hasn't been heat-treated. Other people assign a cutoff. Anything above 0.3% carbon is steel, and anything below 0.3% carbon is iron. This isn't a terribly useful definition as it ignores things like cast iron, which has 3 or 4 times the carbon content of regular tool steel. Historically, when a distinction was made, it was often quite arbitrary. Often the historical person would call it iron or steel based on whether or not the forge black had been removed. The logic being that the only items you would grind clean are the ones made from the good steel, though often the 2 terms would be used interchangeably to better fit the sentence. For example, when Kipling writes of cold iron, he's talking about weapons. Weapons would always be made out of good steel. Now, let's look at the literal definition of steel, which is an iron alloy containing carbon. So, to put it another way, iron is the elemental form, steel is the refined form. Almost every bit of ironwork throughout history has been steel as well as iron. Even historical wrought iron contains some carbon and is therefore a form of steel. The reason for this being that in order to refine iron, you have to burn a lot of carbon with it. When you've got a piece of iron inside a pile of burning carbon, some of that carbon will naturally go into the iron. For that reason, it wasn't until the early 1900s when we figured out how to make pure iron. Even assuming that the historical person got his hands on a piece of pure iron, once he stuck it in a forge, it wouldn't be pure anymore. Historically, the only tools that would have been iron and not steel would have come from meteorites and would have been cold-worked rather than forged, such as these Inuit examples. In conclusion, in almost all situations, iron and steel are synonyms. Don't get hung up on the definitions and don't be pedantic about it. You can use whichever one sounds appropriate and you'll be correct. The product of the forge is both iron and steel simultaneously. That's all I have to say. Goodbye. Gold is for the mistress, silver for the maid, copper for the craftsman cunning at his trade. Good, said the baron sitting in his hall, but iron, cold iron, is the master of them all.